everybody, Crafting Journey here, that journey chick on Instagram, and leftovers on my second YouTube channel. The link to that is down in the description. First, let me apologize. No video yesterday. Yep. All I can say is I was in a mood. I had an appointment I had to go to, and following that appointment, my plan was to do a video. And when I left that appointment, I was in such a state of agitation that the rest of the day was kind of ruined. And it's my fault for letting it get that way, but you know, I have a lot of things I could say regarding. I'm just very upset with the laws of this country right now. And let me just say that, you know, if you're indigent and you want health care, mental health care, yes, you can get it. But don't plan on getting any of the medication that you were getting when you were insured. Yeah, because it might be a controlled substance. God forbid they should give you a controlled substance. You can control it. That's why it's called a controlled substance. You put me on the damn med and then you can't continue it when I through no fault of my own, have no insurance. Okay, I'm just highly agitated. Now I know why these shootings happen. You know, people are going without their controlled substance. Yeah, that they were legitimately put on when they had insurance. Yeah, anyway. And I'm going to go there anyway. Unemployment. Let's just talk about that. Oh, the unemployment rates are down. Oh, well, you know why? Because you can't get fucking unemployment. No. Everybody's waiting for unemployment. Yes, they're waiting for their case to be reviewed. Months and months. So there's a lot of people unemployed out there that are not counted in the unemployment numbers that look so good ahead of today's election. Yes, today's election day. And then, mercifully, those effing commercials will go away. Because who is sick of them? Yeah. Yeah. I'm Sunday. If you come to the live on this Sunday, I'm going to be including a video of this gorgeous castle that my sister and I went to. It's not like a huge castle, like you would think, like you think of Cinderella's castle. It's not Cinderella's castle. It's called a castle. It's a really, really old home here in Wichita. And you'll see when you watch this video that there are political signs on the fascia of this house. So inappropriate. So inappropriate. And for that reason, I would not vote for the people. I would deliberately write those names down and say, nope, not going to vote for you. Why would you put your sign on an ancient, beautiful castle? Ugh, totally ruined it for me. I've got to keep track of this. What am I doing today? All right, that's that. This is this? No, can't be. What? No, that's not it. This is this. Okay. Sorry. So I did get out another painting. It is a Christmas painting. The other one that I'm working on is the black lab that has a landscape in it, and same three colors over and over and over again. So I was getting a little tired of that, and this is one that I had started last year, and I wanted to get it out and finish it. It seems like it wasn't quite as complete as I thought. And I remember now that like two of the symbols are very easy to mix up. Very easy to mix up. Almost identical. And the colors are almost identical. So what does it matter, right? Just throw them down. Yeah, I agree. Also yesterday, in my angst yesterday, I finished this other hat here. And it's so pretty. It turned out really pretty. And I started another one in this colorway here. Look how pretty. Very, very pretty colorway. So I started that one. This is a heavier yarn. This is 5 weight. So I'm going to have to like be careful of the measurements and stuff on that. So anyway, also apologies for not having, for those of you subscribers, and there are a lot of you that enjoy the dogs at the beginning of the video. I'm going to start to put them at the end. The dogs and the cat will be at the end of the video. So if you watch to the end, you'll get to see the animals. There is a specific reason that I'm doing that. And I do apologize. I love it at the beginning. A lot of you love it at the beginning, but new subscribers do not love it at the beginning. People that are just looking at my channel, 70% of the people that are looking at my channel drop off during the dog videos. Because when you turn on YouTube and you see my thumbnail and I'm talking about an update on something or a new trial, and you turn it on, you get a dog. People don't have attention spans that are long enough to watch the dogs. And they don't understand why I'm doing it. So they turn to another video. Oh look, let's watch this other video. I'm the same way. If you don't grab my attention, I'm off to another channel. So you'll get to see them, but they'll be at the end of the video. And yesterday was a beautiful day. I'm going to show you some of the fall leaves that are changing. That's all at the end of the video. So there is a new trial that started here on Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I bring you live updates of trials that are going on live on YouTube. Well, the updates aren't live, but the trials are live. Okay. And I drink coffee. And I want to make sure we're still recording. Yes, we are. Okay. Apparently I pushed the stop button. Luckily it has an "Are you sure?" button. And I pushed, no, I was apparently not sure. So an interesting case started yesterday. In this case, we're going back to Florida, people. The crazies in Florida. And there's crazies everywhere, but one of the reasons why we get a lot of Florida cases live on Law and Crime Network is that Law and Crime Network originated. Dan Abrams is from Florida. Dan Abrams is the originator of the Law and Crime Network. He's the guru of Law and Crime Network. And so it originated covering cases in Florida. And then as it became popular, they started covering top trials everywhere. But we still get a lot of Florida stuff. So this one is out of Hillsborough County, which is where you would find Tampa, St. Pete, that general area over there that just got hit by a hurricane a few months ago. So back on May 28th, it was a Saturday, this couple, they go out to a bar. And the woman's name is Kay Baker, and she is with her boyfriend, Matthew Terry. Now, they are in a relationship. They live together at this home in Hillsborough County. She has children in the home. I don't know where they were that night, but they were not in the home. So, and the only reason I know this is because there were children's bedrooms mentioned, but I don't know a lot about the children. So as this case progresses, if I can update you on the children, I certainly will. But this couple, they go out. They have a night of partying. They have a nice dinner. It's about 10:30, 11 o'clock. They're having some after dinner drinks. It's a place called The Landing. And she gets up to go to the bathroom. And at the same time, so does he. He gets up and they both go to the bathroom. Now, as she's coming out of the bathroom, which, first of all, women always take longer than men, so I don't understand how she came out of the bathroom first, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so she comes out of the bathroom. She runs into a friend of hers, and they're high-fiving it and they're dancing. Now, I have not seen this video. I'm just telling you what the opening statements said. So they're like high-fiving it, dancing, just like so briefly. It didn't even last but a few seconds. And a total stranger, this gentleman who was on his way to the men's room, he, in an effort to get around them, he does the same thing. He just joins in the dance and dances around them to go to the men's room. Well, as he's doing this, Matthew Terry comes out of the bathroom and he sees this. So he's like, "You were dancing with another man," and this whole commotion starts. Apparently, a very jealous man, very, very jealous, and with an anger problem. Clearly. Okay, I'm jumping to conclusions. Okay, so let's fast forward. 12:30 in the morning, quiet neighborhood. Um, this gentleman, he's laying in bed and he's watching TV and he's just dozing off, and he hears a sound like a woman, like this muffled sound, but it's like she's in distress. And the first thing he thinks is, "I wonder, is that my daughter?" So he gets out of bed, he runs upstairs, and his daughter's fine. So meanwhile, his wife wakes up. So then he's still hearing it. He runs downstairs. He goes outside, and he sees this woman sprawled out on the lawn, and he's thinking, "Oh, it's a drunk teenager," and she's passed out. So as he gets closer, he sees the blood, and he tells his wife, "Call 911." So she calls 911, and meanwhile, another neighbor, also lying in bed, watching TV, he hears the same noise. He comes out. So now they're both trying to, in an effort to see if they can assist this woman, that they find with CPR. They were being coached by a 911 operator until EMT got there. So EMT gets there, first responders get there, and by the time they get there, she's gone. She has passed away. She had a laceration that started by her chin, went all the way across her neck up to her ear, cut her jugular vein, cut her carotid arteries, cut her windpipe. I mean, it was like somebody tried to cut her head off. It's horrible. But the neighbors inform the police, when they get there, "Hey, we heard something in the backyard." And we didn't want to go back there. So they go back there and they don't find anything. So they start a search. They actually go. The woman turns out to be Kay Baker. They knew who she was. It was Kay Baker, the woman from the bar that I told you about, the landing earlier. They go to their home. They see that there's a bedroom window, one of the children's bedrooms window, that has been opened. The screen has been forced outward, and it's kind of, the curtains are kind of flapping in the wind. And so they go around to the front of the house. The front door is open. Later on, when they do finally enter the home, they don't enter the home at that point, but later when they finally do enter the home, they'll find out that bedroom, the children's bedroom door, was locked. Now, the bathroom door had been kicked in. The bedroom door had been kicked in. They were based on the damage that they saw to the doors. So they're continuing their search for this sound that someone heard in the backyard. They bring out a bloodhound. The bloodhound, he takes them down this tree line that goes down the neighborhood, and they actually bring out one of these heat sensor drones that can look down and see stuff that you can't see because it's based on heat. And I'm describing that technology very inartfully, I'm sure. So they at the time, this officer, he's following drips of blood. This is what the bloodhound is following, and all of a sudden he comes upon a larger area of blood, which is strange because prior to this there were just drips of blood. And the drone, he's notified by officers that the drone, is over this body, or they can see something. They don't know if it's a body of water. They just see it. And it turns out to be Matthew Terry. He's like within a few feet of the officer. He just couldn't see him. So they find him. He's got stab wounds, two stab wounds symmetrically on the side of his windpipe. Um, yeah. So more about that later. So then they search the home later on during their search of the home for evidence. They do take him to the hospital for medical care. So they, during their collection of evidence, they see that there's a butcher block of knives in the kitchen with 3 knives missing. You know, one of those blocks that you put the knives in. So they find 2 of the knives in the dishwasher. The final knife, which should have been a 3.5-inch bird's beak paring knife, is never found. Never found the knife. So what we're going to hear during this trial is from the medical examiner, who's going to testify that the wounds on Matthew Terry, who obviously survived, by the way, his wounds, in addition to wounds on his neck, he was not injured anywhere else except his arms had long, I'm going to call them scratch marks. Let's call a spade, right? Scratch marks on his arm. Nothing else except these 2 symmetrical wounds. And although the examiner is going to come in and tell us that he can't say with 100% certainty, but he feels like these are self-inflicted wounds because there's hesitation marks, and that will be explained when the medical examiner gives his testimony. In any case, the victim had many stab wounds on her, Kay Baker. So, and you know, when the first responders come on the scene, they don't know what happened at the landing earlier in the night. They just know that they have this woman on the lawn and this man with these wounds on his neck. They have no idea what has transpired. So another neighbor, he comes home. He happened to be a worker at the landing, a chef, and he says, "Oh, I know them. They were at my restaurant earlier. They were at the landing, and they were, they were having a good time." And so they pull footage from the landing, which is how we're going to get to see footage of what transpires, and they actually identify the people that were with Kay Baker and Matthew Terry at the landing. Those people we're going to hear from, they're going to describe what went on, what the argument was about, this dancing with another man. And apparently that argument continued after they went home. And what they have been able to piece together, and we're going to hear evidence of, is that he chased her out the window and then stabbed her. So there's a lot of blood and gore that's going to go along with this. So that is the new trial. Then we have the trial of good old George Wagner IV. Yes, it is still going on. So yesterday, the state halted their case so they could put on some defense witnesses out of order. Now, these defense witnesses had come from Alaska and probably had plane tickets to return to Alaska. So, understandably, they couldn't wait around to whenever the state's going to wrap up their case. And the judge, everybody understands that. So they put them on out of order. So the state halts their case. They put on these defense witnesses. It was a woman and her son. The woman is a pastor from Alaska for this mission in a church that the son runs. And Jake and George attended this church. The whole family did. But they testified that Jake and George would help out with all these missions, and they were very close-knit family. The son testified that he had conversations with Jake, and that at one point Jake was talking about Hannah Mae Roden. He told the pastor's son about the murders, how she was murdered. he did not confess. He just told them, hey, she was murdered. And, her whole family was murdered. And isn't that sad? Boo hoo. But doesn't confess. So, but they were just basically character witnesses. Jake and George are good boys. They went to church and, whatever. They helped out in the church. So then we had a tattoo artist come on the stand who had put a tattoo on George. And George has this pool table with an 8 ball. And, so everybody thinks that's a reference to the murders. Um, And the tattoo artist testified that no, it wasn't George's idea. That was my idea. That I put that artwork together for them. It had no, I didn't know about the murders. So that was what that was, to explain the tattoo. Then there was another person that ran a garage in Alaska, and Jake and George both worked at this garage, and he testified that Jake was a very hard worker, very diligent, but George was a very hard worker, very diligent. Jake would kind of be loafing off. He'd be, playing on Facebook and stuff. So Jake, not so diligent, looking up the murders on Facebook, which he thought was kind of odd. So that was yesterday's testimony. But then once those witnesses were done, the state put on an investigator, another criminal investigator, that following Jake's testimony, now, was that last week, the week before, probably the week before, they decided they were going to try to recreate this whole truck bed scenario, where two large men would get into the bed of this truck with the board over it and the hay. Only they didn't use any hay, they just used the board over it. So they didn't videotape any of it. He's just testifying that we had two men that were larger than Jake and George, that were easily able to get in the truck bed the way Jake says that they did, feet first, and they were able to get in and out quite easily. So that's where they ended for the day. Now that person will come back this morning for cross-examination by George Wagner's attorneys. Time for some coffee. Now we have the Dean Cummings case. This is the extreme skier that is accused of murdering Guillermo Arellano. I can't roll my R's. Sorry. Arellano. Anyway, Dean can't roll his R's either. He calls him he pronounces Guillermo really weird. Guillermo? He calls him Guillermo. Anyway, whatever. So, the state rested their case last Friday. So first thing Monday morning, we get to hear from Dean Cummings. He takes the stand, and I listened to the entire thing. Dean is, although he's cut his hair, he's wearing a suit now. He's not like the bad boy in the ski outfit, not that persona, but still very believable. I found him to be quite credible. When all was said and done, I thought he was credible because he held up under cross-examination. He never wavered from his story, and he described how they were. The only thing left out of this whole story was the element of his schizophrenia. That just kind of disappeared in the storyline. Wasn't mentioned by anyone. So the jury doesn't know that Dean Cummings was suffering from this extreme paranoia at the time. In any case, he described, that his background as an extreme skier, how he came to be. He talked about his heliski business. They would fly people up. It was out of Valdez, Alaska. You'd get on the helicopter, you go up, they take you up the mountain, you ski down it, they pick you up, they take you up again. They would get in like 4 runs a day. And it was very experienced skiers, and they would pay a lot of money to do this. So that was his business. And of course, he was the guide, or he had guides that would help guide them down the safest way down the mountain. But still, quite a dangerous sport. You wouldn't see me there. No. Mm-mm. Mm. No. Anyway, so Dean Cummings, he so he says, he decided I'm decided I wanted to buy land in Alaska. That's where I grew up. His parents lived in not Alaska. I'm sorry, New Mexico. This case, New Mexico. So he grew up in New Mexico. His parents live in New Mexico. He decides I'm going to buy land in New Mexico. I'm an outdoorsman. I like to hunt. I like to fish. I'm going to buy this land. So he actually approaches someone in this small town. Where can I buy some land? And they say, "Oh, Guillermo Ariello, he's got some land for sale." So how do I get in touch with him? They say, "Oh, you'll see him around. He rides a horse." He rides his horse. He rides horseback around the house, around the town. So as he's leaving this office where he stopped, um, he sees this guy on horseback, and it's Guillermo. So he meets Guillermo. Guillermo's like, "Yeah, come on out." And so they meet and they connect, and they had a lot in common, and they're working to solidify this land deal. And Guillermo suggests, "Hey, why don't you bring your fifth wheel out?" Because he had a fifth wheel trailer. Dean did on the back of his truck. He says, "Why don't you come on out, stay on the property, you get to know the property, and then if you still want to buy it, okay." So that's what Dean does. He goes out, parks his fifth wheel out there, and he's learning about the property. He's learning about the horses, about the water system, and so on and so forth. And he's connecting with Guillermo. So he describes that they go to this realtor office one day, and he's shown this real estate contract. And he takes a look at it, and he says he reads it from cover to cover. And he says, I really would like my lawyer to take a look at this first before I sign. And they're like, "Oh, no, you can't take that. I'll lose my job if you take this." And so Dean says, "Well, I'm not going to buy the property, Guillermo, unless I can get my lawyer to look at this contract." And so Guillermo's like, "Yeah. I'll work it out. I'll work it out." So they go back out to the land, and over the next few days, it's discussed. They continue to discuss the deal. It's still on, but he keeps saying, "I want my lawyer to look at the contract." So finally, he gets a little upset, and Guillermo comes over one night, and he goes over to Guillermo's trailer. He's got the fifth wheel. Guillermo has a trailer, so he goes over to Guillermo's trailer, and apparently a few nights before that, they had gotten together at Guillermo's trailer and they were drinking. Um, Dean was not aware that Guillermo was a cocaine user. He had no idea. And the only way we know is because it was in his system on autopsy. Cocaine, alcohol, marijuana. So he goes over to his property a few nights before this. They're drinking, and the weather's cold. So he says, "Why don't you stay in the back room?" So he goes and he stays on the bunk beds in the back room, passes out. And he says Guillermo drank way more than he did. Guillermo passes out on the couch. So, fast forward a couple days later, he goes back over to Guillermo's house and he says, "Listen, what's going on with this contract?" And he says, "Are you trying to scam me? What's going on?" And apparently that sets Guillermo off. That he becomes very angry, picks up something, some kind of object. Dean does not know. Dean calls it a canister, but he says he's only calling it a canister is because now everybody else is calling it a canister. He says, "At the time that I saw it, I didn't know what it was." But then the guy starts lunging after him, knocks him to the floor. Dean gets up, he knocks him to the floor again, and at this point, the fight, dispute, assault, whatever you want to call it, is proceeding down the hallway. Because by the time Dean gets knocked down a third time, he says he's crab crawling backwards towards the bedroom of this trailer. and he grabs a rifle and his AR-15. Now, this is what I don't understand. I think he was staying. Some nights he wouldn't stay in the fifth wheel. He would, like I said, he would stay in this house. So his AR-15 was in Guillermo's trailer because he was doing something with it. He was attaching something. I don't know. And he had the AR-15 because he liked to hunt a particular type of game, and he described what that was, and that's why he got this gun. And so that's why the gun was in the house. He's otherwise the gun would not have been there. I was just attaching something to it, and so anyway, he's crab crawling backwards. He grabs the gun. They struggle over the gun. The gun goes off initially in straight into the floor, and then he says Dean realized that this was not going to end well. That during the struggle, he says he gets sprayed with something, and he realized that if he doesn't take control of this gun, he's not going to come out of this thing alive. So he starts, this is when he starts pulling the trigger of the gun. It goes into the floor, and eventually there's a couple shots that go into Guillermo, and Guillermo dies. But so he says, as soon as Guillermo collapses, he lands at Dean's feet. Dean immediately leaves, does not try to perform any, doesn't even stop to see if the guy's alive. He says, I was in shock. I just ran out of there. Plus, he says, I had just been sprayed with this, whatever this was. My eyes were burning. So he goes and he rinses his hair and his face and to get this chemical out of his eyes, and puts on a different shirt, and that's when he gets in his truck and he goes to this scenic outlook. He drives down because he says you could never get cell phone service out on this ranch. It's just was no cell phone service. So he drove down the road thinking he could get cell phone service. And he still couldn't get it. He ends up at this scenic place where the other guy is on the motorcycle, and we know the rest of that story. The other guy calls 911. Dean goes back to said come back, follow me back to the ranch. I'll show you the body. They go back, and the guy follows him, and then Dean, he says the guy on the motorcycle he saw the body and he just left, and he says I thought he was, I'll just wait for 911. So he gets in his truck. He said he waited for like 2.5 hours for the police to show up, which that's not unusual. I mean, they're out in the middle of nowhere. So he gets tired of waiting. He starts the truck, and he's going to head back up to the scenic thing to use the guy's, well, I don't know. He just gets in his truck and he starts to leave the property, and that's when he runs into the cops. They tell him get out of the vehicle, and he's apprehended. And he said, I never gave them a false name. He goes, I don't know where that came from. He says, I told them when we first called 911 at the scenic place, I was Dean Cummings. And he says they figured that the dispatcher relayed that to them, that this is Dean Cummings. So, and he did actually, he was very vigorously cross-examined by the prosecution. She walked him through every step. She got him to get up and show everything. At one point, they had the rifle out, and everybody was nervous. Judge like, check this rifle, make sure there's nothing in it. And something fell out when they checked it. And he's like, what was that? And it was nothing, but he's like, can we just use a stick? We're not going to use that rifle anymore. It was interesting. So, yeah, very interesting. And he did not waver from his story during cross-examination, which I thought was really, really interesting. Then the next witness was a Mr. Chavez, who was a neighbor of Guillermo's. Guillermo Arellano. He was a neighbor. And he came in and testified that the same thing had happened to him, that Guillermo had this violent encounter with Guillermo where Guillermo maced him. Now, we don't get to know what the subject matter of that, like what started this argument, but it was just another example, because there's a lot of hearsay objections. This is another example of this violence of Guillermo. Then there was another guy that came on the stand, and he was driving up to the Guillermo's property. I don't know, remember why. And Guillermo runs up to his vehicle and is knifing the vehicle, and he's like, "Wow, what are you doing?" You know. So Guillermo apparently has temper. So, and has gone after people with this mace before. So it just lended some credibility to Dean Cummings' story. So that's where we are on these trials. So Cummings is wrapping up. I expect it probably will go to a jury either today or tomorrow. We shall see. Now they say that Friday's a holiday. What holiday is Friday? Is it Veterans Day? I don't even know. What? I think it's maybe Veterans Day. Not sure. I don't have a calendar. Let's look. Wait a minute. What's the holiday on Friday? Calendar. The 11th. I think that's Veterans Day. Anyway. Okay. I know. I didn't keep up with it. So, I'm waiting for unemployment to call me back. So, yeah. Sorry. I'm trying to get sleep at night with no medication that I've been on for years and years. And I'm getting some sleep, some really crazy dreams, but I wake up tireder than when I went to bed. It's crazy. But I did sleep. Oh well. Anyway, how are we doing on time? All right, let me show you the animals, and then I will see you tomorrow. I'll bring you all the latest tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And don't forget, tomorrow afternoon at 6 p.m. is Craft With Me Wednesday, where I'm going to get the miniatures back out and keep plugging away on them. So, all right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye. There's Stitch.